to discuss it all, CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett joins us from our Washington bureau. And Major, again, we have seen chaos like this outside of Donald Trump rallies before. We also saw violence touch Democratic functions as well, of course, notably in Nevada some 2 weeks ago. What does this say now about the general state and rancor of this election cycle?
Well, I think we need to be careful to distinguish between the two first and foremost, Josh. What happened at the Nevada State Democratic Convention was a disagreement, a public one, with some raised voices and a little bit of jostling about party rules and allocations and the enforcement of rules and things like that. That's fundamentally different. That's sort of an intra-party disagreement with a little bit of friction with the Democrats in one state over one particular set of rules. What you see more and more in the Trump rallies, and we saw this during the primaries, and I think we're going to see more and more of it during the general election, is a generalized sense of grievance about the entire Trump agenda, or much of the Trump agenda. And what the campaign is girding itself for, I can tell you, is this general election move into a broader discussion nationally, more voices involved, more protests involved, and the likelihood that this is going to become an endemic part of the Trump traveling campaign caravan, which is to say, each and every city there runs the risk of organized protests about who Donald Trump is, what he has said, and what he represents. And that could be an ongoing dynamic for the Trump campaign. We will have to wait and see. It's interesting in New Mexico. Why was Trump there in the first place? It's not really a swing state. Democrats have won it in 5 of the last 6 elections. He was there because that was the first place he was doing an organized fundraiser as the presumptive Republican nominee. Some people may remember last week he did a fundraiser for Chris Christie. That was different. That was to help Christie retire some campaign debt from his presidential campaign. Before this rally, Trump had his first fundraiser for the Republican Party in general as their new standard bearer. So that's why he was in New Mexico. And then he goes to the rally and encounters these very deeply entrenched protests. And they marred not only the outside of the event, but they disrupted the inside of the event. And the Trump campaign is girding for this potential reality, this idea that everywhere Trump goes, he's going to encounter opposition, some of it pitched, some of it violent, and it's going to possibly cast a pall over his entire campaign message. Now, the Trump campaign likes to say, hey, it didn't hurt us during the primaries. That's a true fact. But a general election is completely different. It's a broader sense of the country. More voters are involved, more voices are involved, and more attitudes are shaped by what they see happening along the campaign trail. So this is an important moment for the Trump campaign. We'll see if it continues. There's not much that Trump can do about it to stop it if he doesn't reshape much of his rhetoric, and that itself invites its own political risks.
You mentioned the differences in the general election. It is also much more expensive. You mentioned the fundraising he was doing in New Mexico. In recent days, we've also seen previously anti-Trump donors such as Woody Johnson and former Ambassador Mel Sembler jumping in now as part of a group helping to raise money for the presumptive nominee. Also, it should be noted for the party, Sembler and Johnson, both supporters of Jeb Bush. It has been said that Trump and Johnson have now mended fences there. Could this signify perhaps that another concentric circle, if you will, of party leaders are looking to fall in line with the presumptive nominee?
Yes, but I would be cautious about that. These are very jagged alliances right now. Look, the Trump inner circle fundraising-wise is still largely unknown to most Republican bundlers and donors. The people he's put in charge are not well-established, well-known Republican fundraisers like Woody Johnson, like others that you've mentioned, and there was a list that the Republican National Committee put out yesterday of 6 names, all of whom are going to be working for the Republican National Committee, not Trump. So I do think there is still a division of labor and a division of alliances, because many of the people that were on that RNC list published yesterday were thought to be closer or might have a more prominent role within the Trump inner circle to raise money for his campaign. They didn't make the cut. They're not in Trump's inner circle. They're in the RNC inner circle. And so, yes, there is this general umbrella of unity, but there are still divided loyalties and divided labor. And what it seems to me, Josh, is what we're seeing is some experienced, well-known Republican fundraisers putting their stock in trade on behalf of the Republican National Committee and the party writ large, not necessarily Donald Trump.
Where it leads, the weeks will tell us. Major Garrett there in Washington. We appreciate it, Major.
Thanks.